Welcome back to the Why Though Wednesday podcast. I'm your host, Tashia Mallette, and thank you so much for joining me on my mission to empower individuals within organizations to challenge the status quo respectfully. You know we are going to dive deep as we always do. Today we're going to tackle a big one. How to know when it's time to leave your job. If you've ever found yourself contemplating whether it's time to move on, you know you're not alone. Knowing when to leave a job can be one of the hardest decisions that you have to make in your career. And it's not always about finding something new. It's about understanding whether staying is still aligned with your personal goals and well-being. So as always, we're going to break this down 3 ways to provide a more holistic perspective. Signs from you, signs from your organization, and signs from the universe that tell you when it might be time to move on. We start each episode by leaning into the feeling of the topic. We do this exercise to build trust with ourselves and develop our intuition. So if you are thinking that it might be time to move on from your current role or employer, I invite you to spend some quiet time in reflection to see what emerges for you. As always, I'm open to sharing my feelings as we explore these topics because I think sharing is caring, but it also may help you become more confident and comfortable with the process and the type of information that you may overlook because it's subtle or feels weird at first. Remember, no one can tell you how to feel or how to interpret your feelings but yourself. So when I know it's time to move on, I start to feel like an observer. It's like I'll be in meetings and feel myself elevating above the table and looking down, and I start to see everything very clearly from that angle. It's like I'm distancing myself. At that moment, I know it's time for introspection, and I sit with that feeling and process what's coming up for me. It may be a sign from myself, the organization, or the universe. But from there, I can create a strategy to bring myself back into balance, whether that means staying and committing to my own personal growth, having a difficult conversation with my manager, or maybe I do decide to leave the organization. But you'll always have clarity on the decisions you need to make when you're still. It'll feel right, you'll be at peace, and the universe will take care of everything else. So let's start with signs that come from you. As much as we look to external factors to guide us, the first place to check in is within. These internal signals are often subtle, but they can provide crucial insight into whether it's time to leave a job. The first sign that it may be time to leave your job is when you wake up in the morning with no excitement about your work. And I'm not talking about the occasional I don't feel like going to work today type of feeling. We all get that. I'm talking about a sustained lack of interest in the work you're doing. If your job no longer excites you or aligns with your passions, that's a red flag. You know what happens next: burnout or frustration. Speaking of frustration, if you notice that you're constantly frustrated, irritated, or resentful towards your job, your coworkers, your manager, that's another major sign. Resentment tends to build up over time when you feel undervalued, overlooked, or disengaged. If this feeling persists, you know it's going to impact your mental health and well-being. But that might be your signal that it's time to reassess whether the environment is right for you. If you find that you're no longer being challenged, learning new skills, or advancing in your role, this can be a sign that you've outgrown your current position. Stagnation in your career can be a major source of frustration. And it might be a sign from yourself that it's time to explore new opportunities where you can grow. Next up, let's talk about signs coming from the organization. Sometimes the environment you work in can provide important clues that it's time to move on. And while some of these signs are obvious, others may require a bit more attention to detail. If your workplace has a toxic culture, whether that's due to poor leadership, office politics, or constant conflict, this can be a major reason to leave. A toxic culture can drain your energy, demoralize you, and negatively impact your mental health. If your company doesn't prioritize employee well-being or inclusivity, it may be a sign that it's time to find a healthier work environment. Another organizational red flag is if there is no room for growth. If your company doesn't offer career advancement opportunities or a clear path for promotion, this could leave you feeling stuck. It's especially concerning if your leadership team seems uninterested in supporting your professional development. A disconnect between your values and the company's mission or practices can be a significant sign to move on. If you find yourself disagreeing with how the organization operates, whether that's in regards to ethics, work-life balance, or employee treatment, you might eventually feel like your integrity is being compromised. When your personal values don't align with the company's culture, it's hard to stay engaged or motivated, and it's also a sign. Now let's talk about the more intangible signals, the ones that people might call signs from the universe. This might sound a little mystical, but hear me out on this, because sometimes the universe sends us subtle and not so subtle signs that it's time to make a change. For example, have you ever had one of those weeks where it feels like everything is going wrong? You missed a deadline, a project falls through, your team's not cooperating. It feels like the universe is just throwing obstacles in your path left and right. And while setbacks are a normal part of any job, a consistent pattern of frustration and failure can sometimes be a signal that you're meant for something different. If things continually feel off track, it could be time to reassess your career path. This one is more about timing. Sometimes, when you're ready for a change, opportunities tend to pop up in your life unexpectedly. You start hearing about a new role, networking becomes easier, or you're just more open to the idea of change. If opportunities seem to be showing up regularly, that might be a sign that the universe is nudging you in a new direction. This is one of the strongest signs from both you and the universe. If your job is affecting your physical or mental health, it's time to move on. Chronic stress, anxiety, physical ailments that are caused by work-related issues are a major red flag. Your well-being should always come first, and sometimes the universe forces us to confront that when we've been ignoring our health for too long. So, how do you know when it's time to leave your job? Whether it's feeling stuck or disengaged, being in a toxic work environment, or noticing signs from the universe, all of these clues are here to help you determine what's next for your best and highest good. Remember, the goal of your career is to align your work with your own personal growth, values, and well-being. So if you're considering making a change, take some time to reflect on the signs you're seeing right now in your life. Don't ignore these gut feelings. They're trying to tell you something. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Why Though Wednesday podcast. I really hope you learned something new that you can use to create change at an individual or organization level. And if you found this helpful, Please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, take care of yourself.